Motorbike COE. For those of you who don't know, in Singapore we have something called a certificate of entitlement, which is the certificate to own a vehicle. So in this case, I'm going to be talking about the COE of a motorbike. So the recent bidding has just came out, and the motorbike COE previously was $12,000, which is ridiculous because the machine only costs about 7,000, or depending on motorbike you want to buy. And now the COE has dropped surprisingly to $5,000. That's more than a 50% drop. It's insane. Now, before a lot of you, I'll be expecting people to be rushing to the workshops to get your motorbike. These are some things you still should consider, even though the COE has dropped more than 50%. So I've got three things that I will be focusing on, which is the purpose, future, and also financial. So we're gonna start off with the broadest one, which is your purpose. Before you think about buying a bike, do you really need it? You should always consider it, because the fact that we are in Singapore, we don't have such, Singapore's not a huge country. You can get anywhere through public transportation, and Singapore's public transportation is actually quite cheap. So, especially as a student like myself, you only get pay up to like 65 cents per trip. It's been a while. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a rider myself. So sometimes I ask myself this question as well. Do you actually need it? Why do you need it? Imagine if all you use your bike for is maybe once a while you go riding. Do you actually need it? It's not going to be as useful. Maybe once a while you want to go riding with your friends. Yeah, it feels cool, but make sure you have a purpose before buying the motorbike, because down the road you're going to start to wonder, do I actually need the motorbike? So purpose is number one. Number two, we're going to talk about the future of the bike. Now, doesn't mean you buy the bike now at, for example, the price of a bike is with the COE. So the COE is 5,000. Machine bike brand new is 7,000. So that's going to be like 12,000 for the bike itself. We're not going to count insurance or taxes and anything like that. So consider the fact that the bike will cost $12,000 right now. Are you gonna plan to use it for a long term? Because honestly, if you are gonna plan to using it for a long term, you might consider buying one. And also, I don't know, but if I'm not mistaken, if you buy it right now and if you are to keep it in great condition, you might actually make some profit if the COE rises up to the whopping 12K that it used to be. So that is something to consider as well. But just like myself and a lot of people, we don't have a lot of money to buy random bikes, and I don't even think that's a good investment plan. I'm not an investor, so I'm not sure. But make sure you think about the future. And if you were to buy this bike, for example, for those who are upgrading, I have a class 2A license right now, and I'm actually waiting for a class 2 because I have a class 2B bike which COE runs out in 2029. So that will last me for quite some time. So I was thinking that maybe I'll save up for class 2. Maybe that's something that some of you might want to do also. Getting a class 2B bike, and then when you get your class 2A, you don't buy a class 2A, you get a class 2 license, then you buy a class 2 bike. Which is, for me, I think it's a smarter move, because basically you're going to be using the class 2 bike, or ideally for me, I'll be using the class 2 bike for like until I maybe get a family or what and I need a car. But think about the future, and what do you actually need from the bike if you were to buy the bike right now with the low COE price. So last but not least, you should always talk about your finance. Can you afford it? Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a story for myself. So me personally, when I bought my first bike, financially I was not so stable after I bought the bike. So basically, the bike I bought was a second-hand MT15. I show a picture right there. So basically, a second-hand MT15, and during that time, if I'm not mistaken, the COE pricing was about 8,000 dollars. That was back in about a year or two ago, about 2 years actually. So when I bought the bike, second-hand, it was actually 12,000. The guy actually used it only for 1 year, and he sold it to the workshop, and I bought it from the workshop. If you buy the bike from the person itself, it's going to be cheaper, because you're buying direct from the seller instead of going through the middleman, or your third party buyer in a way. So that's something you should look at as well. But I will only recommend that if you know about bikes, because if you don't know about bikes, it's always safe to go to the workshop. So as I was saying, I bought my MT15 for $12,000, and after I bought it and paid my insurance, taxes, and all that, I was straight up uh, broke. I didn't plan ahead. So that was my mistake. So basically, I started to have a lot of financial issues in terms of taking care of the bike, in terms of like maintaining it. You want to clean it, and if there's an accident, which I have been part of, how are you gonna deal with it? And all this should always be a consideration, because when you're buying a bike, it's not only gonna be make your life more easier or more accessible in terms of moving places, but at the same time you're having a bigger responsibility, because right now you have your own vehicle. It's a huge responsibility to own your own vehicle. So financially you should always plan. So nowadays, uh, I'm thankful I'm doing well. So I follow this, like, depending on what you want, there's this like 10% rule, there's the 50-30-20 rule, whatever it is. But make sure, I think personally, minimum, if you want to buy a bike, for example, 12K, you must have another 12K in the bank, because you have to consider the fact that if anything were to happen to the bike and you need to maintain the bike, service the bike, you have that amount, so called that safety amount. So always watch your finance and don't rush to buy a bike just because you have the money to. Doesn't mean that you can afford the bike means you can afford the bike. I don't know if that makes sense, but in a simpler term, yes, you can afford the bike, but to maintain it, can you afford it? So make sure you think about that. And guys, I think that's about it. Those are the three main pointers that I want to be talking about. Maybe in the next video, I'll actually give some pointers in terms of what you should get if you were to get a bike. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you are gonna buy a bike, buy smart. And if you are bought a bike before this COE drop, I'm really sorry for you guys, because it's like an insane drop. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next one.